Thank you, Kathy. It being 6:04, I'd like to call to order the council, the Utilities Committee meeting for February 10th, 2020. Could we please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Kathy, can I have the roll?
Hicken,
Here.
Epperson.
Here.
Walther.
Let the record show that Mr. Walters is not here, however, we do have a quorum. Appreciate everybody being here this evening, and let's see, I have first on my agenda, in fact, I'll probably just turn it over to you, to be honest with you, Chris, if you don't mind.
That works fine, Mr. Hicken?
So, WRF upgrade.
Yes, sir, WRF upgrade. Some of this will be just a little bit of background information from Mr. Epson, catch him up to speed. The last year, the department went through the process of designing an upgrade to our wastewater plant. The main goal of that was to reduce our phosphorus that is in the effluent going out to the stream. We anticipated getting a phosphorus limit on our most recent permit. That did not happen, but they advised that it's coming on the next one, so we're still doing the right thing by getting the phosphorus reduced ahead of time. The EPA also offered a 0% interest loan to fund projects for the purpose of reducing the phosphorus limit, because it was such a big push on their end to get the limits down. So that's what we're using. That's the funding source that we're using for this.
Okay.
The other thing that it does, we have some operational challenges when we're running the plant, just for the way the system's designed. Most of that is dissolved oxygen in our treatment process. So what we have now is a large tank. In that first packet, the staple packet there on page 2, the oxidation ditch, you can see at the top, we have a large tank that has round discs on them. They have protrusions that come off the side, and they just spin and they push air into the solution. It works pretty good during the day. At night, when the flows go down, the level of the tank has a tendency to drop, and actually it will go all the way below those paddles, and so we'll push no air in at night. So a lot of times we're playing catch up the next day. We're trying to push as much air in as we can when the flows are up. At night, the flows go down and we lose the dissolved oxygen that we're trying to get in the liquid. We need that oxygen for the bugs that are in our treatment system. Just to be oversimplify, the bugs eat the bad stuff in the sewage, but they obviously need food and air to function properly. So this system goes to a jet aeration system, which will, much like a very large fish tank diffuser stone, it'll take air and pump it into the bottom, diffuse it, and the air will come up through the liquid, and that's how we'll get the dissolved oxygen in there. That, by using that type of system, it doesn't really matter where the level of the tank is. We're putting the air at the bottom instead of the top, and it just gives us more control on how much air is in the product for those bugs. So that's basically the background of that. Again, oversimplified on why we're doing this. Where we are at, we have had our timeline moved multiple times by the EPA through their review process. They have had numerous turnover on employees. So we would have a person evaluating our project, they would leave, a new person would start evaluating, they would leave. It's happened to us about 3 times altogether. Right now, we are still waiting on the PTI to be approved from the EPA to allow us to actually build. They've approved everything except the actual plans, basically is where we're at. So once they
Permit to install.
so, yes, permit to install, PTI. Once they approve that, we can go to the bid process, pick a contractor, and then once that is all finalized, then we will get the construction loan from the EPA and can actually start the process. That PTI, we were told last week would probably be a good time to check with them. We checked back. The guys that was doing the review had a death in the family, and so we're going to check back with them again this week. But that's kind of been the speed bump of the project is getting the evaluation done through the EPA. This packet was given out back when we started the project, just to give an overall of everything, so it should have some useful information in there. The budget to this point is still accurate, which is the very last sheet, so that'll help with the breakdown on the planned cost of everything.
Out of curiosity, Chris, do you remember, do we start paying on this immediately?
We,
Meaning as soon as they do the first fund distribution, or do we pay on it when? And I don't remember.
so we pay on it the next year, and I wanna say it's the next July. Payments are due in January and July, but because we won't really get started until about July, we'll pay the next July, so 2021, July will be the first payment. You can pick, with this 0% interest loan, you can pick anywhere from 0 years, paid all at once, up to around 20, I think it was, 25 years. But we have kind of settled on a 7-year repayment plan. We don't want it on the books forever, so it'd be right around $200,000 a year for 7 years to pay this all back.
And I think some of that's the way we've been thinking about it as council, is also 7 years is good. Getting it off is good for the city's standing with the bond stuff that Jamie keeps an eye on.
Yes.
And by the same token, who knows what's gonna happen? So the quicker you get the debt off the books, if, God forbid, so I guess towers are insured, or say a water tower fell down or something, so.
Yeah.
200,000 a year?
Yeah, that's it, roughly. It's right around 1.4 million for the project, so divide that by 7 would be right around 200,000 a year.
What's the maintenance cost on the new system a year?
The maintenance
Compared
cost.
to what we do now?
So the maintenance cost than what we do now is pretty significant. I don't have the numbers, but what we have is a giant shaft that spans across that tank, and it just spins 24/7. It never stops, and all of those parts are wearing out. The new system will basically just be plumbing and 2 pumps. Those pumps will stir the tank, and they will also pull air down with them. So the maintenance goes from multiple moving parts, motors, gearboxes, drive shafts, to just these 2 pumps. We'll have a backup. We can pull one out, put another one in while we're getting it rebuilt. Like that.
The only reason I asked, I just saw the hoist system and I was trying to figure out, is this something you gotta pull out quite frequently and do maintenance on, or?
Not quite frequently. It's very similar to what we have in our lift stations, where we have a submersible pump that goes down.
Mhm.
The difference to this, it's not exactly the same. It also pulls air down. But the hoist system it sits on a rail, and you just lower it down. It meets up with the plumbing when it's all the way seated,
Mhm.
and then you would pull it back up from the railing again. The routine maintenance is basically when you just run it, and you run it until it starts failing, and then you pull it back out. A lot of it is all self-contained, and it pretty much just sits there until it needs to come out to work again.
So the city's gonna save money on maintenance and man hours?
Yes, we definitely will on the man hours. We'll save money on maintenance and man hours, and most importantly, we will gain control of the process. A lot of our man hours now are, like I said, we spend most of the day trying to make up for what happened at night. And so there's a ton of extra sampling, monitoring that we're doing, and ideally, hopefully, this will take care of that kind of thing.
Also ideally, I think, showing the EPA that we're being proactive about stopping a phosphorus stream load on the creek,
Yes.
or the west fork of the,
Right.
south fork of the Licking River.
Just for my education purposes, does that the phosphorus increase in the streams, or is that kinda add to that algae?
That's exactly what it's for. Yes, yes, the algae bloom that you'll kind of get, the phosphorus coming off of runoff is a little bit more difficult to control and regulate. The phosphorus that we put in the creek is very easy to regulate, and that's kind of where the project's going. There is one thing in there, you'll see a backup chemical feed system. So ideally, this biologically will be able to meet any phosphorus limits they give us by increasing the DO and doing this upgrade. We will have a backup system that is a chemical that can be added to the process we've tested it, it will knock the phosphorus down to whatever we want. The problem with that is you have to take it back out before you can put it in the stream, and that increases your sludge production and the cost to get rid of the biosolids with that. So that will be emergency, if as needed. Ideally, we'll do it biologically, but we do have a fail-safe built into this, should we not be able to do that.
sure this new system uses a lot less power.
It should, it is just, like I said, it's just two pumps that are spinning around as opposed, the size of the drive shaft and those discs are pretty massive. It takes a good amount of force to get them spinning. So if there's, any more questions, no more questions on the WRF upgrade, I'll move on to, item number 5.
Excellent.
Item number 5 is an update on the GPD Group I&I Corrective Action Plan. In your packets, there are 2 sheets stapled together. The first sheet, front and back, is the language that the EPA put into our permit requiring us to address the I&I issue. Excuse me. That language was debated back and forth. The original language that came out was very, very restrictive. We met with them several times and talked to them about coming up with language that's a little bit more reasonable and more, something affordable to be pretty blunt about it. And this is the language that we landed on. So that language includes developing a corrective action plan. We went out with an RFQ last year and going through the process, selected GPD Group to develop this plan for us. The second page is a map of our sanitary collection system broken down into zones. Now, not all of the zones are going to be part of the I&I study. A lot of the newer developments, like number 1, Sugar Mill is all plastic pipe with good seals. And a lot of the stuff on the eastern half of our system is all also plastic pipes and new. The big source of our problem is Old Town. It's old clay tile, and the joints are not watertight anymore. So we get a lot of groundwater that gets in through the joints of the pipes there. That's where our focus will be, and that's where the EPA has shrunk down our requirements to just focus on those Old Town sections. We do have a lot of cammering work that we've done to our sewer mains, but it's not in an organized fashion. And part of the I&I corrective action plan that GPD Group is doing, they're organizing that data. When I spoke to them 2 weeks ago, they are also tying the camera work to a GIS map to make it easier to keep track of everything and organizing all of that. When it's all reviewed in that camera work, as the camera is going through, if they see I&I water getting in, they code it, and they have different levels. It's like a 1 through 5 rating. And those will be used as this is where we should check first. We should look in these areas because they were identified as having a crack or a leak or whatever. Then we can go through and fine tune it by putting in flow meters in those zones to try and shrink the size of the area that we're looking at down. So we put flow meters in during a rain event and see which flow meter had a spike. And then we would know the stuff feeding that flow meter's area. Obviously, we have a problem there, and then we could just fine tune the search more and more. And then identify what we can do to mitigate the I&I water that gets in. The EPA's requirements are relatively lenient on actually completing projects. Initially, it said we had to eliminate all I&I water from the system, which is virtually impossible to do. But now to simplify it again, what we have to do is identify the problem and look at our collection system, but we just need to pick some projects that are feasible that we can accomplish throughout the span of this permit, which is a 5-year permit, to meet the requirements. One of the benefits of doing this is it also allows us to identify and analyze the health of our collection system on the west side of, not of town, but of our zone, the old village. The reason that's beneficial is that most of the area that is available for future growth will have to dump into this Old Town collection system in order to get to our wastewater plant. To the east, where the newer systems is, we're already kind of up against Southwest Licking. There's not really a lot of room for growth there, but the Headley Mills corridor coming out this way, this will let us know what our system is like and how to anticipate future growth coming from that way.
And the increased water leads to backups and other issues.
Yeah, it does. The main thing it does is it eats up available capacity at our treatment plant. So we get rainwater to the treatment plant, and then we're spending time and energy treating it when we shouldn't have to.
Shouldn't have to.
Yeah, it would just go away.
Makes sense.
But it also does, it'll fill up a pipe, and if you have a huge rain event, it could fill up a pipe and end up backing up into people's basements and houses as well.
Some of the things that we're talking about there are, could be as simple as new manholes, or manhole covers.
Yep.
And stuff like that, so it's not always real high-tech or slipstreaming or, we were surprised when the EPA came out with their original, well, you're gonna have to stop all water infiltration, but having worked at the EPA and Chris having experience and it just took a letter.
Yeah.
It did, yeah, just a dialogue with them, and it's a completely different document than what was initially given out, which was promising.
And you said we're cameraing most of the Old Town just to see.
We have already cambered most of Old Town,
Yeah.
just cammering and doing cleaning work, and so those are the videos that we're gonna compile together to use as this plan. If we need to, yes, we can go back in and camera another spot to verify. This camera work is about 10 years old, so it could be worse in
That
spots.
could show like crushed sections or.
Yes, we don't have
sections,
any
roots.
crust sections, but yes, roots, and the separation of the joints. Clay pipe is like 3 feet, you've got another
Yeah.
joint, and so that's almost always where a big source of the problem is.
Does stuff get out at the joints too?
Most of the time, the stuff that is in the water will form a nice protective film in the bottom of the trough, and that's where most of the liquid goes. If you fill the pipe up, yes, it could come in. Most of the leaks are up top.
How big's the pipes, just curious?
They go anywhere from 6 inch, which is very small, usually 6 inch coming out of one residence, up to 24 inches, which for us is large. In the industry, that is still very small.
Yeah.
But yeah, 24 inch is what we have going down Jefferson, going down Creek Road into the Creek Road lift station. So if everybody's good with the I&I update, we'll move on to the next section.
Chris, I got one quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
The CBD group, so far as funding and everything, is it ready to go?
Yes, it is. The PO has been written, and we are just pulling off of that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Number 6 is the potential utility department vehicle purchases. We have gone through last year as part of the budget process. We have 2 pickup trucks that are from 2008. They have been ridden pretty hard. The one has engine, transmission, and rear differential problems with it. So as the budget comes up, we like to shoot for 10 years on a vehicle. These vehicles have been kicked down the road a couple times to get to where we're at now. The one of them does have a small plow on it that we use for our parking lots at the water plants and sewer plants to plow as needed. But these 2 vehicles, the plan is to replace them. Instead of getting rid of both of them, one of the 2 is not in as bad a shape as the other one. So the plan would be to keep that one, put the plow on it, and use it as a runner from plant to plant. So our operators will go, they gotta spend time at each plant and log in their hours for the EPA. This vehicle would be for that. The department has a Transit, a Ford Transit, a small vehicle that was purchased to be a service vehicle for the serviceman, but it is too short to fit shovels, and it's not 4-wheel drive, and it's not a very practical vehicle for that. So what we've done, since we moved to the Old Town Hall, we basically use that vehicle for office running, going to the bank, going to the post office, running papers up here to finance and back and forth, whatever's needed. So the less wore out truck would be replacing that in the fleet. But it wouldn't be going on service calls and getting more worn out, it would just be for plant runs. So that was kind of the concept of it. I'd hope to have a quote for both vehicles to present to you, and then bring it to council. We're still waiting on the quote for the second vehicle. These are coming right off the state bid website, and we budgeted $30,000 for one and $35,000 for another. The department has no vehicle that can seat more than 2 people in it comfortably. They're all, regular cab pickup trucks we have. The quote that you see in front of you would be for a 4-door cab with a shorter bed on the back of it. The other vehicle that we're still waiting on a quote for will be a regular cab, and it will have a utility bed on the back, with toolboxes on the side, over the wheel wells and whatnot. They are both four-wheel drive. They help for responding in the snow, in the winter, and our guys have to get samples from the well fields as well, and they don't have driveways or a paved road to get out into the well field, so four-wheel drive is pretty necessary. We also need to have decent-sized trucks because we have a pull-behind generator and a pull-behind, it's a 6-inch pump that's mounted on a generator that we take from lift station to lift station if we need it. The pump especially is a very heavy trailer, so we need to have a bigger vehicle that's able to pull them. We kind of spitballed around maybe using an old police cruiser or something like that the city had in other departments, but none of them were four-wheel drive and big enough to pull the equipment that we need to pull around with. So that's why we kind of went this route. My plan would be to, when both quotes come in, then I'll take them to council in resolution form to seek permission to move forward. I just wanted to give everybody an update on where we're at in the process and to just kind of fill you in on why we're asking for these two trucks, basically.
These are different than the one resolution for the truck, the first meeting we were at
Yeah.
this year, right?
But you'll see this come through as its own resolution for probably two
Yes.
at the same time. I guess my 2 cents on the truck is, I have seen state people, first of all, I love Bob Ross Truck Group, just in case you're feeling bad today, that entire good vibe of Bob Ross and his painting makes me feel good. But I would also say, I've seen them like run out in May, so don't let the paint dry.
Right.
Whoever's spearheading this, I'd say, don't let Bob Ross lull you to sleep.
I agree 100%.
Okay.
We will, we'll follow up again, pushing for that quote, and the second we get it, it'll be on the next council meeting agenda.
I know that you spoke briefly with Mr. Walters about some of these issues.
Yes.
Did you talk to him about this?
I did. I spoke to him about every issue that we're gonna go over tonight. He had no concerns, for any of them.
Excellent. Anything
So-
for you, Mr. Epson?
Okay, we'll move on to number 7 then.
Chair.
Number 7 is just in your package, just a picture of a map. There's a lot going on there. It's not the greatest map. But the red square is around the water main that is on Jefferson Street. That is behind Old Town Hall there. It goes from Mill Street to Depot Street. That water main is a 6-inch cast water main, and it is our most problem-causing water main as far as breaks go. Every winter, there's at least 2 breaks on that main, and so we have budgeted to look at replacing that main. Would also be wanting to upsize it from a 6-inch to an 8-inch in 2021. So that means that the engineering for this project will be coming this year, has been budgeted for. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that will be rolling around here within the next month or so. We'll be starting to get the ball rolling for that. That will also come as resolution from the council because the amount will be over $10,000.
Just to do the engineering?
Just for the engineering, yes, sir. So that's where we're at. The tricky part the interesting part about Jefferson Street's water main is everybody's service along Main Street comes from the backyard down Jefferson.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So when the new water main was run down Main Street, there were service connections that were fed out to each property to tie into in the future. The problem with that would be that the city would have to run a line we would have to redo the individual plumbing. Either that or we would have to add a fitting on the side of the plumbing that the customer is responsible for. And most customers they don't want any more fittings than they have to. So I think that the most reasonable thing to do will be to continue to feed them from Jefferson Street. It'll be cheaper in the long run, and it'll be, we won't be digging through people's side yards and everything else trying to redo their plumbing and get them routed up to Main Street. So that would be my intent with that.
What's the issues with it?
With Jefferson Street,
With it just,
it's,
the damage, the age, is it
Yeah.
not deep enough? Like,
it's from the 30s, and it's just cast. And what the cast have, the ground will freeze, and then it'll thaw, and it'll move a little bit, and we get circular cracks on cast. It'll just be a wraparound crack. And we'll go down and we'll put a band on it. Well, we have sections now where there are bands about that far apart from each other, where we fix it, next year it breaks again, we fix it, and it has just been, I would say age. I mean, it's almost, we're going on 90 years that it's been in the ground, so it's just time to replace it. And upgrading it will help us with the hydraulics in that area. If you look on the map, the Mill Street, Jefferson Street section, there are a bunch of lines that all tie together right there. That is where the feed from water plant 1, the feed from water plant 2, they all kind of come together right there. And then it all gets choked down.
And it runs
Some
north?
of it gets choked down. Yes, it runs north. There's an 8-inch main that runs down Ray Street, but the main on Jefferson's is 6. So if we can increase that to an 8, it'll help with the hydraulics of the whole area, where those two plants come together and meet each other in the system. So that's just kind of a heads up that that'll be coming down the road. We'll be working with Paul to do the engineering of this plan, and then next year is when it's budgeted to actually start construction. If there's any other questions in regard to the Jefferson Street water main, if not, we'll move on to number 8. The next sheet in your packets is one quote to clean our wells. We have 2 water plants. Water plant 2 out at Refugee and Watkins Road has 2 wells that are underground out there. Water plant 1, which is right next to Tassilo Ridge off of 310, has 4 wells. We have them on a rotating cleaning schedule of every 4 years. They get scrubbed out, pump gets pulled, it gets cameraed, and basically just routine maintenance on them. We did plant 1 last year for those 4, and plant 2 is due to be done this year. We budgeted $25,000 for plant 2 with the 2 wells, and this is just one of the quotes that we've got. We're getting 3 quotes together. The other 2 haven't responded yet, but this was just to give you an idea that the quotes are coming in at a reasonable level compared to our budget. So when we get all those quotes together, this will be another thing that comes to council as a resolution because of the dollar amount, and that's just part of the routine maintenance process for it. A lot of times the wells, if you don't clean them, you'll start to lose capacity, just like anything else. You'll get built up, iron built up mostly. There's a lot of iron in the water, and so you go in and scrub that all out. There's screens that are in there. It's always a good idea to pull the pump out and take a look at them. I mean, we depend on them to do a lot of work, so this is just part of that process.
Chris, can you tell me what additional well on the bid means? On the top, it says clean wells 1 and 2 on Refugee Road, and then they've got an extra $9,000 for an additional well.
So I believe that the top 4 items that are listed is the itemized project that will happen, and if you add that all up, it's 9,411. And he just put additional well for well number 2 instead of itemizing each step for well number 2.
Makes sense in the total.
Yeah.
Good.
But, yeah, like I said, we try to do 3 quotes as often as possible. And we have 3 companies that have been interested in this. So when we get those quotes, we will pick the lowest and best service and present that to council.
What was this company's name?
This one is Mount Well Drilling.
I recognize that name.
We have used them in the past on different services. There'll be a quote coming from Moody's, and there'll be a quote coming from Jameson, who did Water Plant 1 last year. So,
Excellent.
if there's no other questions about the well cleaning program, we'll move on to number 9. Number 9 is the largest portion of the meeting tonight, is a paperclip packet for you. We have 4 water towers in our system. One of them, Headley Mills Tower, was recently painted and is in great shape. So that is not included when we're talking today about our water tower maintenance program. 2 of them are in Beechwood Trails, and there's one that's located next to the wastewater plant. We call it Southeast Tower. Last year we had Southeast Tower cleaned and some touch-up paint done to it to buy us some more time with the paint coating that's on there. But the 2 at Beechwood Trails, I've been here since '04 and they've never been touched, and I believe them to be original paint surfaces on the outside of these tanks. As you go through the pictures that were given to you from drones, the pedestal style water tower is Beechwood Trails 1, and the one with the legs around the side of it is Beechwood Trails 2. Beechwood Trails 1, you can see where some of the paint is coming off and you're getting some rustation, which is bad, but the paint is still in a good enough condition that we can overcoat it. We don't
Which
have
one,
to,
sorry?
the pedestal one.
Okay.
We don't have to blast that down. The paint is there, the primer and stuff, there's enough of it left that we can just paint over top of it. Beechwood Trails 2, maybe 3 pictures back, you get a real good shot of the top of that tower. There is not very much paint left on top, and the condition that is left on the sides is poor. That tower will need to be blasted all the way down to the metal, primer coat put on, and then top coat put on top of it after that. That's a significant process to get that done. Originally, when we were talking about these, because we knew that was the worst one, the thought process was, we gotta paint that one first. But after talking to different people in the industry, because that one is already to the point that it has to be blasted down, it makes more sense to get a hold of Beechwood Trails 1 now, while that we can still use the primer on it. Because it doesn't matter when we do Beechwood Trails 2, it's all gotta come off. So we've adjusted our timeline a little bit in doing that. I did reach out to Pittsburgh Tanks, which is the next little packet that's stapled together, and asked them to give me just a budgetary quote for those 3 towers, southeast and both of them at Beechwood. They quoted me external paint jobs and internal surface work, basically where the water's at, has a different style of coating on the inside, which ours are all in good shape, but they will need to be done routinely just like any other paint job. The very back of the first page, you can see that the tower that needs blasted down, just for the exterior of that tower, is an $882,000 project.
This is for Beechwood Trails number 2.
That is Beechwood Trails number 2, yes, sir. Then on the interior for that tower, it'd be $150,000. So you're looking at, almost $1 million for just that tower by itself. The other towers are not in as bad a shape. Like I said, when you don't have to blast it, so blasting it down, you've got to put collection tarp over the whole tower, and it's just pretty involved process. It's a pretty expensive thing to do. The other ones, the other towers, the quotes we got are significantly lower for them. But when you add them together, the project comes out at 1.57, something like that, $1 million to do those 3 tanks. There is a company out there, the company is called Suez. They've worked with us before. They worked with local communities. They did Johnstown's Tower not too long ago. They have a maintenance plan, or program. That is the last sheet that's in your packet with the colored squares. It's a 10-year maintenance program, broken down into annual payments, as you can see, of $156,500 a year. During that 10-year plan, they would do all of the work that is presented by Pittsburgh Tank, doing it a one-time job, painting it and then moving on. They also will include a washout of the towers, which is part of the EPA maintenance plan. They will do any emergency services, which since I've been here, we have had 3 leaks on the Beechwood Trails towers, and they come in, they'll climb up, they'll make the weld, necessary repairs, whatever they need to do, as well as doing visual inspections, which are annual in this plan. They'll come out and do. This all falls in nicely to the EPA's push for asset management as well. If you have a program like this, it's real easy to show them, look, this is how I'm managing these assets. The total for this comes out to be about $28,000 more over 10 years than to just do the tower paintings and move on. I think that $28,000, the extra service that you get is well worth that in the long run. My intent for this would be to go out for an RFQ. This company does the engineering and the construction all in-house themselves. So I'd go out for an RFQ to advertise for a 10-year maintenance plan that would include all of these features. Get different firms competing with each other that are interested in it and picking the most economical and best service for the city and then bringing that to council, after that process is done. Regardless of which way we go, the Beechwood Trails Towers are going to need addressed quickly. We have budgeted $300,000 this year and $300,000 next year to paint the surfaces. As you can see, it looks like both of those years together are not gonna be enough for one of the towers that needs it. The other towers, it'll be fine for it. So the plan would be to adjust that, if we went this route, to adjust that budgetary number into an annual payment that would be much easier to absorb into the fund, prevent any large valleys from showing up on our fund graph. Whereas if we did them individually, that $800,000 year is going to be a big hit on the fund. So if don't receive any negative feedback or any concerns about doing the RFQ process, I think I'm going to move on that quickly. The best time for us to get these towers painted is in the summer. Most cities do not have 2 towers that they can turn one off and paint one. So in the summer, everybody says, no, you can't work here in the summer, I need my towers in the summer, which leaves some availability for the project to get done for us, because we have 2 right next to each other at Beechwood, and in the low pressure side, Headley Mills and Southeast Tower, they both work together, so we can shut one of them off, do the paint, and just use the other one for a short term. So that would be my plan, is to go out for an RFQ quickly, within, maybe by the end of the week to advertise it. It'll advertise for a month, and then we'll collect the submittals in and evaluate which firm we'd like to negotiate pricing with and see where we can land there. Seems like a lot of information to dump all at once there, but that's kind of the water tower situation in a nutshell.
Just so I'm tracking everything here, so this is just one proposed to do just one job,
Yes.
one time, right?
Yes.
And this is a company that will do it, or an idea that will have it broke up over a 10-year period to accomplish the same work?
Correct. Plus the washout, plus emergency services, and the asset management program is something the EPA is really pushing hard for, and so you get the benefit of that as well.
So they'll probably do the work in one shot, right? You get
No,
one-
they'll do it in this system. So Beechwood Trails 1, in year 1, they would paint the outside. That's the one that we
That's
can
the one with the
overcoat.
legs, right?
No, the other one.
The other one, I
Yes,
gotcha.
so we can overcoat that one.
Gotcha.
So they'll do that year 1. Year 3 would be Southeast Tower, because we bought some time with that doing the touch-up paint, but the primer and stuff is still good. So we can go in and overcoat that one as well. When we get to year 5 is when they'll blast the Beechwood Trails 2, blast it all the way down and repaint it.
Will that survive till?
It will survive till year 5. The reason we put it off that long is because it's already bad. It's already at the point that it has to be blasted down. We're not at the point that we're losing metal or anything like that. It's just surface rust on the top. But the weight of the paint would be too much for what's there to hold it on. They call it a scour test. You put a big X with a razor blade in it, put the special tape on, and pull it off, and you don't want to see the paint come off. On Beechwood Trails Tower, everywhere they put it, it came off in like a big square. I mean, it was just peeling off when you put force on it.
How much is a new tower? I'm just curious.
I have never purchased or priced a new tower.
That's my first question.
I do not know how much a complete new tower would be.
I was just curious
That's a
to
good
see
question.
what the cost benefit.
So now I'm extremely curious about that, and I will find out and let you know. I'll ask around, get an estimate on what a new 500,000 gallon tower would be.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what that cost would be to see.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be
So
hard to
nothing
do.
really to compare it to is, is maintenance percentage-wise of the total
Right.
cost, or is it close to the total cost? I have no idea.
But my gut tells me it is going to be significantly more, but
Right.
but it's easy enough to find out. Actually, New Albany has been putting up a lot of brand new towers, so I can call them and find out pretty easily. So I'll find out and email the committee and let them know.
I got a couple other questions.
Yes, sir.
The first one is, I asked about, or Mr. Epperson asked about what a new one would cost. When you look at the maintenance plan, numbers 10 and 11 give me pause, but not veto-y pause. Just, 10 says you're responsible for putting all the dumpsters out there and getting rid of all the waste that comes off the tower. And 11 says, and if any of it's hazardous, that's on you too. And I think the next one of them also talked about, and 12 says, putting up all the shrouding is on you as well. What I would ask for you guys is to see if if this company can give you, or any company can give you a ballpark estimate on, are they hiding costs, in other words?
So I do know that the maintenance plan from Suez, that's all inclusive. They're aware of the makeup of our paint on the towers and everything will be, it is a, here's the work to do, go do it, hands off kind of approach.
And Suez is the,
Suez would be the 10-year maintenance plan company.
so PTTG is not the people that are,
No, and they, from what, in my conversations with them, they don't offer this type of maintenance plan. They would much rather get assigned a tower, come out, paint it, move on to the next tower.
the other thing is, number 14, you should probably ask Mr. Zetzenbach. It says that any and all arbitration for this will be heard in Kentucky and be heard according to Kentucky law. I don't-
That's an excellent point, Graham. Any contract that we come close to considering will definitely go to Mr. Zetz. For just that type of reason.
The last one, I guess the last one is, do you anticipate in your RFQ, RFP process, do you anticipate there being more than one or two companies?
I don't know. I only know of Suez that offers this type of maintenance plan. My guess would be that yes, there would be, any company that does this type of work would be able to put together a plan to do the 10-year maintenance plan. But the only one I have heard of firsthand is Suez offering that service, which is why I wanted to do the RFQ to get it out there and hit all their message boards and see if somebody else will do it.
And sometimes I think we do an RFQ or an RFP because we wanna see if there are things that,
Absolutely.
anticipating that there's not. And so this is the only game in town, this is what I wanna go with.
That's highly possible, but yes, we'd like to see if there's something else out there.
Why did Suez's procedure and maintenance agreement come through on PTTG's letterhead? Why, this looks to me like Pittsburgh Tank Tower.
It did not, we must be talking about two separate things. This is the Suez sheet, yes. This is all PTTG.
Okay,
So I probably misunderstood.
no, so then I would say my aforementioned comments about 10, 11, 14
Yes,
should be applied to this
yes.
and not Suez.
Right. And that will all be, so those points there, 10, 11, any hazardous materials, setting up the skirts around the tower, all of that would it'll be laid out in the RFQ advertisement that this needs to be included in your proposal so that we can have apples to apples when we're comparing everything. Plus, we don't have the ability to set up those skirts, so we would have to outsource that to somebody anyway, so.
Mr. Emerson asked about, will it last to year 5?
Yes,
And what kind of flexibility do we have with Suez if all of a sudden it doesn't last?
so if we go into this maintenance program with them, these years get squished, can be switched. The visual inspections, all the green squares, are really the driving factors for when those projects will happen. But once we're in the plan, the cost is the same every year. The work that gets done each year will be fluid based off of the visual inspections.
Excellent.
How old are these towers and the paint?
The ones at Beechwood Trails are from the 80s. Southeast Tower is from 2006. My belief is that they are all original coatings. I know Southeast Tower is an original coating, and I'm very confident the Beechwood Trails are as well.
So we could expect with proper maintenance, the new coatings will last.
Oh, it should be a 30-year
Plus
investment, easily, yeah. It should be 30-year on the low side for how long they'll last.
Also, I saw, what was it, cell tower stuff
Yes.
on number 2?
Yes, so we have a service, we have an agreement with Verizon where they basically rent space on top of the tower to put their antennas up there.
Do we know if the maintenance will disrupt that at all, or
The maintenance is it's a common thing that they deal with. Obviously, towers at high points and pretty common. The maintenance, in this package, what Suez is presenting, they will work with Verizon to coordinate everything.
No extra cost?
No, right, so Verizon, it's up to Verizon to move their stuff out of the way so we can maintenance the tower, and then they can reattach their stuff later.
And I assume they're leasing that space from us?
They are, yes, yes. It's a big undertaking for that to happen, but it's all on Verizon to do, and the coordination will come from, in this circumstance too, but that would be part of the RFQ, where all of this, to be apples to apples, we want a package where we basically say, this is what we want you to do, and then you handle it
Right, get it done.
in-house, yeah, as opposed to dumping little portions of it off onto the city. Hidden costs.
Excellent.
Well, if there's no other questions?
Pretty long list of stuff. Is there anything else that you have?
No, sir, I do not have anything else.
Mr. Epperson, do you have anything?
I do not.
I really appreciate everybody coming out on a rainy night and making this happen before the next. The only question I would have for you is, we have begun to see committees get the briefings done by the department heads a little bit more than by the council people themselves. On Monday, do you feel pretty comfortable going through this and giving a little synopsis as part of your regular? I realize you're wearing that hat and this hat, and depending on whoever's not here, that hat too. If you don't mind, I kept decent enough notes, but.
I have no problem
And
with
then
that at all.
Mr. Epperson and I can add something if we need to.
We can just add that into my utility committee report, and obviously if I miss anything, hopefully you guys will catch it. So I have no problem with that at all.
Excellent. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second by me.
Hicken,
Yes,
Person,
Yes.
we stand adjourned. Way to crank it. Thanks for waiting on me, everybody.
No problem. Would be a committee meeting without you.